Now we are going to revisit this idea about changing the world. Because a lot of us have the feeling that um, it needs changing. Now, when I look at America, I see Americans having a dream, and individual Americans often have the dream of having their own business and being their own boss. Entrepreneurship, and that is a cherished thing. Entrepreneurs are held up as these are model American citizens. But there's a horrible shadow in America because entrepreneurs are cherished, but secretly in the shadow there is a business of taking people's desires to be entrepreneurs and quashing them. Very dark business. Very dark business. And how does it happen? Well, this is how it happens. You're a 11-year-old and you deliver newspapers. And you don't make much money, but you do it. Maybe you deliver the morning paper and you get up at 4:30 a.m. every day to deliver the papers. And over the years, you go from different job to different job. And you always have in the back of your head that this is what you want to do. So over years and years and years and years, you save up your little nest egg of money that is dedicated to, when I got enough of this nest egg of money, and when it meets the right opportunity where the money matches the opportunity, I'm going to jump into business for myself and be an entrepreneur and be an American. And then I'm going to be able to support my family, I'm going to not just be like the average Joe on the street with an average house. I am going to show my family how we are going to become rich. We're going to have a huge house, and there's going to be 4 cars in the driveway for the family. We're going to have a really big boat. We're going to have a house in Aspen, Colorado, and another one in Naples, Florida. So what really happens? Well, the reason people think this is possible is because they've been brainwashed to believe it's possible. Because there will be people in your own life who went from rags to riches. And you're going to say, if they can do it, I can do it too. So what are we talking about? At my world level. Okay, I'm going to calibrate my consciousness right now, okay, just to see where I'm at for talk here. Okay, I calibrate over 200 on the scale of human consciousness. Over 300, over 400, over 500, 510, 20, 30, 40, 540. Unconditional love, okay? On the scale of human consciousness, that is where I'm talking to you from. Okay, so we're going to talk about America and what is set up in America. What is set up by the filthy rich, the billionaires and trillionaires, is they own all the cities. And they also own your money supply. And they've also been in these unbelievable, ultra wealthy families for generations and generations. Perhaps their family has been ultra wealthy for, I don't know, let's go with 700 years. You're an Italian family from Florence, perhaps. And you know, you can trace your lineage way back. So these ones have, over the generations, had a business. And the business is staying on top. And they're really good at it. These are people who might have their own bank. They own their own bank. An investment bank, perhaps. They're unbelievable. And so they have, over generations of people in their family, they have attuned themselves to this particular thing that goes on. It's called the economic cycle. And it runs from the economy running on all 8 cylinders. That was back in the days when, you know, a fast car had an 8-cylinder and all the muscle cars in America were 8-cylinder. Okay, so getting back to it, the economy is running on all 8 cylinders. It's prosperity time. You, Mr. Entrepreneur, Mrs. Entrepreneur, Ms. whatever, here you are, and you've got your nest egg of whatever you've put together. And this business opportunity comes along, and you look and you say, it's my time to jump. I want to be this. And you do it. And then what happens is the business cycle goes from being prosperity, and it falls all the way down to depression or recession. And after a certain number of several years being crappy, then it starts to go back up again, and you know, we got this business cycle, ups and downs of the business cycle. And this business cycle is your ticket to failing in your business. Because all of a sudden the loans that were so easy for you to get when prosperity times were on, all these loans are being looked at by the bank, and they're telling you, you gotta have to repay this. This is a callable note. We're calling it today. I need you know how much money you took out from me? I need it today. By the end of business today, you come in and you're gonna redeem that with cash money. And lo and behold, it's true. Why is it true? Because no one reads all that fine print on these standard documents that are given to you by a bank or whatever. You don't do it when you install a new app on your smartphone. We don't do it. It's legalese. It's difficult to understand. It's little tiny print that you need to get a magnifying glass to get at. And even if you are someone who's taken a course in business law, like yours truly, I read these things, I say these are very difficult to understand. Even when I've got the basic concepts of the legal system. That is the way that we get sucked into these kind of things, that we think we might understand them a little bit. We don't understand all the different ways they can be twisted and turned to give you a custom product that in the middle of a recession becomes a huge problem for you. So the business cycle itself is perhaps the #1 reason why businesses fail in America. And you know, someone who owns a strip mall If you live in that near that place for a number of years, you'll notice businesses come into these strip malls and they go away. So there's a turnover of these new businesses in this strip mall. Who's winning here? The landlord. Why? Well, because these little businesses just come in and maybe they're going to go and stay, or maybe they're not. And then if not, then there's going to be another American entrepreneur who's going to be looking for a space. Now, I'll give you an example on a modern day Netflix show. Cobra Kai. In Cobra Kai, that's the TV show, Netflix show, that's the sequel to The Karate Kid from the 1980s. The guy wants to open a small business. It's a karate dojo. He looks around, he finds a strip mall that's in the low rent side of town, and next thing you know, the dojo's in this strip mall. And the other stalls in the mall aren't that full. So, it just shows you that these strip mall people are in the business of serving entrepreneurs who are getting into business. It's a long-term business being a landlord that owns the land and possibly the building you're in. To make a long story short, you as an entrepreneur are against an unbelievable number of people who are in the business of taking money from you, regardless of whether you do good or your business fails. They got their hand out, and if you don't pay the money, you're out on the street and your business is over. You can't take a month off, because a month off, your business has failed. So this is why when I say holding the entrepreneur up as an example of somebody you should follow, you see a successful person and you go, I can do it too. But if that person's the same age as you, for example, I want somebody to really explain to you. You are maybe out of your class of people. Is it 1 out of 10 that ends up with a successful business going into entrepreneurship? And you're looking at the 1 out of 10 who made it big. And then the rest of the 10 is, there's one other person who's like a serial entrepreneur. In other words, they get into a business and something happens. Maybe it goes good and then they sell it, or maybe it goes bad and then they're not doing it anymore. But they're a serial entrepreneur and they're still at it, but they never really made it big like the very first person. And then what other people do you have? Mostly employees of the first two people. And maybe, the whole point is that just because there are examples of people, you might have one of those coaches that say, they can do it, you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And they're pushing you and pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. That's not going to make you successful. Having someone with a whip at your back does not make you more successful. So what's the whole point? The point is odds are stacked against you. And even if you think, well, I know the secret or law of attraction, or, my mom's a witch, and the guy down the way, he does ironwork, and I'm going to get some horseshoes, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur. So we want to remind you. Sometimes the grass looks greener over there. And the statement means, you see someone who's very successful. They got that big house, they got the 4 cars, they got the house in Aspen, another one in Naples. And there are other lifestyles that you can live, where you can live a different lifestyle, where you're not going to be spending your time being that business owner, operator. So what we're dealing with here is what's known as a rigid intellectual opinion. Because the words that I just gave you in the story I just gave you are about, they're kind of intellectual talks. And I told you I was talking to you from 540 Unconditional Love, which is a higher strata of intelligence. And from 540, when I look at a rigid intellectual opinion, the person who keeps going for it, keeps going for it, keeps going for it, keeps going for it, keeps going, the serial entrepreneur kind of person, boom and bust kind of person, they have an instrument and they're using it their way. And they might be using a rigid intellectual opinion that I can duplicate the success of the next person. And we don't want to go too far down the idea of you buy a franchise and you buy a system. Simply, it's another way to hook you. And the fisherman that's looking to hook you is looking for your money. And they could be in any different kind of occupation. But they're always looking for low-hanging fruit. And in today's world, that's people who have money who we can get their money. Either we're going to be cunning, or we're going to be sly, or we're going to act like we're very conservative and stable, and we've been around the block for a long time, we know what we're talking about. In the end, they all want your money. And they're very good at getting your money. And maybe sometimes they're going to go and bundle all of your bank loans together with all the other people that are just like you, entrepreneurial. They bundle them all together, and then they're going to sell them to somebody else as an investment. And we heard all about this over the decades, about these kind of maybe mortgage-backed securities, they were called, and they were very popular. And then what they were doing is they were giving junk loans. They would give a mortgage to somebody who didn't even have a job. And the person would have a mortgage on a house they were living in, but they couldn't make any payments because they didn't have a job. And then they took a whole pile of these houses together, and they called it a mortgage-backed security, and they sold it to you, and you had it in your investment portfolio. And when the banks couldn't cover up the fact they had all these bad loans on the books, well, then you were notified that your mortgage-backed security, it fell in value like 99.9%. What else fell that much? The value of the US dollar due to inflation over the decades and decades. There was a time when 5 cents meant something at the corner store. 5 cents would buy you possibly 5 bubble gums. That's when I was a kid of about 11. So 44 years later, what has happened to our currency? It's enormously deflated in value. Why? Simply because the world we live in is based upon a whole goddamn economic system that inflation is a tool. By central bankers' use, they can float or sink a country. So, you think of inflation as, Jesus, the price of a steak doubled since COVID-19 began. And then you hear about it, well, COVID-19 and the meat packing plants, and they're not making as much meat, so the stuff that is available is more expensive, etc., etc. Economic environment is always going to be, look out. So how do you really stay in a world where there's so much uncertainty covered by lots of bullshit and bafflegab? As a person at 540 Unconditional Love, the way that I stay at Unconditional Love is I look at everything as a rigid intellectual opinion. You go and see an attorney because you're in the middle of a lawsuit with, or whatever. You go to see the expert. And what does he give you? He gives you his legal opinion. Is it the law? No, it's not the law. It's his opinion. It's basically common legal stuff that's taught at law school out of law textbooks. And the story that this lawyer can tell you about it, given the story you came in with. But his opinion that you're going to win in a lawsuit doesn't mean you're going to win. And if he loses, it doesn't mean you don't pay him. So the rigid intellectual opinion is, I need to see a lawyer in order to sue my neighbor because his tree is overhanging my property and dropping apples in the fall into my lawn on my side of the fence. At 540, how do we deal with lawsuits? We, personally, whether I do something, this body does a lawsuit or not, it's not up to me. The spirit decides, because a long time ago I decided to give up my free will. And free will is simply your ego mind trying to decide to make the decision yay or nay. And after you've had one of these things for a long time, perhaps you've boxed yourself in so much that you're sick of having intellectual, legal discussions about things. It's just, you've done it too long and you're ready to move on to something new. Time for a change. Time for a change. Time for a change, Shaw Transport. That was my cousin's newspaper ad. He owned Shaw Transport, and when he needed drivers, it was a standard ad. They already had the ad made up on file at the newspaper, and when my cousin called up the newspaper and said, put my ad in, they knew what it was. It went in there, and that was the title of the ad. Time for a change, ? And then underneath it said Shaw Transport. So it was simply, are you a disgruntled driver? Are you a disgruntled driver? And Saturday morning when these want ads were in, that's when, if you were a disgruntled truck driver, either you were on the road and you stopped at a Greasy Spoon Cafe and you're having your bacon and eggs and toast and coffee and you're reading the local paper, and there it is. It's an ad for someone who's looking for a change, and it's you. So, Mr. Truck Driver, you end up in my cousin's shop, and next thing you know, you're driving for Shaw Transport. So it was a very good ad. What's it got to do with rigid intellectual opinions? Generally speaking, if I get a rigid intellectual opinion, I sit with it. Sometimes it possesses me, and I go off for a while under the possession of a rigid intellectual opinion about something. Or I study it, I pick it up, but I have my friends and they know about rigid intellectual opinions, and if I'm stuck in the middle of having one, they might say rigid intellectual opinion, which is my cue to what's going on here, and then I realize I'm possessed by a thought form. A rigid intellectual opinion is a thought form, and you're not thought forms. I've said many times on this channel that you are awareness. And what surrounds your awareness is mind. And you are not mind. You are awareness. And this is where I differ from many other spiritual teachings. Because they confuse you to make you think you are your mind, you are your body, and then some offbeat people like Rumpelstiltskin Rumpelstiltskin said, not only are you all that, but you're all this too. You're those trees, and you're that park bench, and you're that birch tree, and you're the grass, and this is a maple tree. And you know, oh, you're they say you're everything. You are God. This is what these people teach. And well, that's a rigid intellectual opinion, the idea that you are God. And these are very good mind exercises, because you have a monkey mind, and you need to put your monkey mind, pretend it's a gerbil, and put it in one of those gerbil running things, you know, the thing that gerbils run around, and it spins around and spins around. Don't go anywhere. It's very cute, and the gerbils get their exercise. Anyway, I was talking about rigid intellectual opinions. Do not beget too many ideas about what is true, because you're going to have a difficult time discerning the difference between what this truth is in words, or even, it might not even be in words, it might be in a thought form that you're perceiving along with words, or maybe it's just coming in as kind of a picture, an image. These images and thought forms are in mind. You are aware of mind, but you are not mind. So it's not you. I'm taking the opposite tack to, that's me, I am God, and everything is me. I'm taking it the other way. I'm saying, I don't know. That's a rigid intellectual opinion that that's true. And I know from my meditation that, you know, the one who's in here, aware of what it's like to be, you know, rooted inside this physical body. This one that I usually say, it's, you know, sort of like you close your eyes and it's sort of right behind your eyes. Close your eyes, point right there, and that's where at least this one's attention is. But this one who is right here riding around inside of this body is not the body, and it certainly isn't the words coming through. It's not this and it's not that. Everything that we see here that we call physical things, I would say all of that is in mind. And it's not you, the one who's listening. You are awareness of all of this stuff. So the mind brings you all kinds of rigid intellectual opinions that you can buy into or not. It's not you. You're aware of mind that's created this character, this human personality attached to a body, and all of mind is creating all of the words that are coming out. Oh, what about the brain and all that? No. You've never, you know, cut open a human head and looked at a brain. So, you know, it's just that your mind, the mind, has brought you through standard education the idea that the mind is produced by a physical brain, and, you know, if someone shoots you with a pistol into your brain, you're going to either have severe brain damage or you're going to die. But what happens to the awareness? Well, the whole idea when I go in this direction is awareness has no choice in the matter. No choice whatsoever. You as awareness, you're simply aware of the body, mind, personality going about doing its thing. And it used to believe to you that you were this body. And the words that came out, because anyway, that's what it told you. But if you sit and you look at it, you're simply aware of all of this stuff. You are not choosing. And this is what many spiritual masters over the ancients of days will say to us. The benefit of knowing this teaching is you already let go. Quite often, you hear people talking. I sometimes talk about letting go. Who lets go then? It's not you as awareness that lets go. It's this human personality with the body, which is mind. Mind does it all. Mind will let it go or hold on to it. And it will be in your awareness what the mind is doing. And another spiritual teaching from Osho was just sit and watch the mind frolic. It's incredibly creative, the mind, and it frolics, and you just sit there as awareness and watch it. And it brings you feelings, sometimes happy orgasmic feelings, or horrible sick feelings, or painful feelings, or I'm too hot, or I'm too cold, or I'm just right, or I'm just absolutely enjoying the sunshine beating down on me. Whatever it is, mind is bringing it to you. And actually right now, mind is talking through this physical organism to you from the calibrated level of consciousness of 540 unconditional love on the scale of human consciousness that I'm sure you can find on the internet. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share and surprise someone with